When has a salesman talked himself right out of a sale to you? I was broke, but desperately needed a new car, so I went down to a local dealership to see if they had anything with a monthly payment I could afford. I handed over the keys to my car so they could do an appraisal, but I didn't even get a chance to fully explain my situation before they were shoving me in an Infiniti I knew was beyond my price range. I test drove it just to humor the sales guy while explaining that I needed something cheaper than this, but he just kept saying we'll see how the financing works out. We get back to the dealership and he tells me he wants to run my credit. The pushiness has already turned me off completely, so I've already decided I'm not buying from them. I tell him no. He looks at me like I just threw shit in his face. "You won't let me run your credit?" he said with stunned incredulity. And then he started calling out to the other salesman. "He won't let me run his credit, can you believe that?" The other salesmen all shared his shock, like I was committing some unforgivable insult by not letting him run my credit. Next thing I know, I'm being herded into a manager's office, where he starts giving me this spiel about how I clearly don't appreciate how much they are trying to help me out. "But I don't want the car," I said. He continued on like I said nothing, telling me how much they are trying to help me out, and how I don't realize what a great deal they can make me. I have finally had enough though, so I said, "Listen, I'm not buying that car from you, and at this point there is nothing you could say or do to get me to buy any car from you, so give me back the keys to my car so I can go somewhere else." And then he actually said to me, "I'll give you back your keys when I'm ready." He realized almost immediately that he had fucked up though, because as soon as he said it he got up and went and got my keys. At that point I was so enraged that I probably would have punched him if hadn't gotten up to get them immediately. I drove off and never went back. TL. Doctor went used car shopping, and used car salesman tried to bully and intimidate me into buying a car I didn't want and couldn't afford anyway. Representatives from Cox called and woke me up trying to get me to add a cable package onto my already existing internet package. I told them that if I get woken up a third time by a sales call, I will cancel all of my services and switch providers entirely. That was the end of those sales calls. Not me, but my parents. My mom and dad were meeting with a sales guy who worked for a pool company when they were looking to get a pool built. He was a standard sales guy and at one point tried to mention some add-on or something. My mom started to interject and the sales guy was basically like, "Oh, don't worry. Why don't your husband and I talk about the money details?" He said a few other things along those lines and was overly condescending. The whole "how about you sit tight while the men talk business" sort of mentality. My mom looked at the guy for a second, then to my dad, then stood up and said, "You know what? I think we are done here." As she and my dad stood up to leave, the sales guy apparently kind of stammered, then smirked, looked at my dad, and said, "Oh come on, haha, okay let's continue," thinking it was some joke. My dad responded, "Nope, you heard my wife. We're out of here." And that was that. We were looking for a particular style of furniture and went around town checking all the shops to see what was in stock. You can barely even walk in the door before being set upon by a salesman, but at most of the places we'd say we are just looking and they'd be all great and back off, waiting for signs that we might be interested in something so they could swoop back in. But this one place, it was like dealing with those street vendors who leap on the windshield of your car with a squeegee at a stoplight. We'd say we are just looking, and he'd say okay, take 2 steps back, then leap forward, and say things like, "Just for you, I can probably get free delivery." Jesus Christ dude, we haven't even looked at anything yet and you're trying to deliver it for us. It was so obvious that the deals he was offering were what the manager had told him to use for negotiations, and he was so excited that he was prematurely blowing his haggle load all over us. We ended up not even walking through the entire store because he was hassling us so badly. I've posted this before. A car salesman told me the van I was looking to buy had brand new brakes and tires. Pick something less obvious to lie about. I just went back to the van, checked, and sure enough the tires were almost bald and the rotors were grooved to the touch. He got his manager involved, and now they are trying to convince me that the work was done. Like how? But I'm apparently an idiot. They didn't say that, but they knew I caught them in a lie. so I just left. This experience was the last straw that convinced me to buy a brand new car instead. Went to a Honda dealership to look at a Civic, and the sales dude told me they didn't have any in stock. Somehow, he showed me an Accord, which was nice and all, but I was looking for something cheaper and with better miles per gallon. He tried to convince me to buy it by saying it was heavier, which meant it was more reliable. I laughed at him and left. My dad and I were out shopping for my first car. Me being 16 and stupid, I found a used Challenger that I wanted desperately, and to my immense surprise my dad agreed to co-sign for me. As my dad and I were negotiating the price of the car and what things the dealership could add to sweeten the deal, the salesman implies that my father's 16-year-old daughter was his other woman, and that my 42-year-old father was going through a midlife crisis. My father turned white, and then the same beautiful cherry red of the Challenger, and needless to say, I did not get that car. Instead of getting a cool car that I would have inevitably gotten a surplus number of speeding tickets with, I bought my aunt's '99 Ford Explorer. After replacing parts of the AX system, it runs like a champ. I love that SUV. Edit. The Explorer is a small American SUV. It is bigger than most European first cars. I know it's terrifying that a licensed 16-year-olds would drive it. If it's any consolation, I spent most of my time driving in very rural areas my first 6 years driving. Yes, the insurance would have been absolutely astronomical if I had actually managed to get the Challenger. In hindsight, I'm fairly certain it was my dad attempting to show me how to buy a car from a dealership. 16-year-old me thought he was cool as hell for at least entertaining the idea. My father is not Roy Moore. We are from Georgia, not Alabama. You gotta wait till they're 18 to diddle your relatives in Georgia. Semicolon close bracket. Asked a Subaru salesman what the best price he could give me was on a 2014 Crosstrek with 40k miles. He told me the same price that a new one goes for. I informed him of that and asked why I would buy this one for that price instead of just buying a new one. All he said was that they hold their value really well. That was the end of my search at that dealership. GNC. Told the guy I was looking for a pre-workout. He asks what I usually use. I tell him, and he literally laughed at me. Then shows me a new brand that's about twice the cost of my usual brand. Meanwhile, he's throwing out a bunch of scientific nutritional terms. I left and haven't been back. When I was in the army, I went to Best Buy to buy a car stereo. After picking one out and talking to the sales rep, while we waited for another rep to grab the radio from the back, the rep I was talking to started talking to me about God and how women are demons and I need to stay away from them. At this point, I didn't really know what to say, so I just tried to change the subject. He then asked me if I had a GF. I told him yes, but she has been in Afghanistan for the last 6 months. He then told me that her being deployed is a blessing in disguise because now she won't tempt me in committing sin. I just walked out after that. I was too shocked to actually say anything. Was buying a laptop for university and I was looking at what was available in Future Shop and the salesman came over and started completely bullshitting me. Maybe he thought because I was a girl I didn't know what computer parts mean. Maybe he was genuinely stupid. But I ended up buying a computer elsewhere as that guy got on my nerves. We showed up in our broke ass clothes looking at refrigerators. The one we looked at didn't have a tag, so the salesman said he'd look it up. He never returns. We go looking. He's helping an attractive couple with clothes they didn't sniff that morning. Well, we get another salesman. He says it's $999. Our limit was $1,200 and ordered it. We even got 3 replacement water filters for the price of 2. He got the $50 commission. Other guy probably didn't get his sale. I was out looking for a reading chair, something smaller than a love seat, but bigger than an armchair. Furniture store just didn't really have anything that was perfect, and Mr. Pushy kept showing me chairs I had no interest in. I just wanted to look around the store, so I looked at what he showed me and said it was pretty and I would think about it, then turned to look around. He proceeded to ask me if I needed to maybe call my husband or boyfriend to get permission to buy the overpriced chair I had called pretty. Oh hell no. I politely informed him that as an adult I didn't need permission from anyone for anything, and that he had officially found the easiest way to lose a sale. Promptly left without waiting for a reply. A salesman got really pushy with me when it came to the extended warranty on a used Mustang. I was a mechanic for a while and restore old vehicles as a hobby, but he told me that I wouldn't know how to work on newer cars. The guy wouldn't take no for an answer, so I told him that I changed my mind. Was looking to buy solar panels for my house. Got one consultation from a really nice saleswoman who was very friendly, but completely knew her shit inside and out. Had done her research, had printouts of my house's roof from Google Earth, showed me how the panels would lay out, etc. I told her I was going to get a few other quotes, and she said that was perfectly fine, and please just let her know what I decided. So I call around and set up 3 other quotes. First 2 were fine, just more expensive or not as good terms overall. The third place though, Varengo Solar. Yikes. I got a call from their sales guy who refused to come to the property, said he could do it all from the office. So he looks at the roof printout and tells me that he can offer around 2/3 of the panels as the other companies. I ask why and he says, basically, because. So I say 3 other companies are offering between 17 to 18 panels, whereas they will only do 13. He claims they are wrong and gives me some nonsense reasoning. I say okay, well at least they're cheap. So I tell him thanks, I'm going to go over all my options and I'd call him in a few days. I got calls from him every day for the next 3 days. After 2 days of still thinking, he comes back to me and says he's figured out how the other companies got more panels on the roof. They rotated them differently. Go fucking figure. On the 3rd day I said I wasn't interested. Thank you. So I got a call that same day from his manager asking why I wasn't interested. I told him that, even though they were the cheapest, their inept sales attitude and extremely pushy manner from every person I talked to there made me never want to do business with them ever. He tried to talk me out of my fucking opinion about them, and I calmly told him to never fucking call back here again. Please. And hung up. Meanwhile, the nice lady at the other company, now Sunrun, hadn't bothered me once. I called her and said let's do it, and haven't regretted it one day since. She also worked her ass off to get me a very close price to the cheapest option, even after I told her I was going with her company. It ended up only being like $300 more than the cheapest place. Looking at some lower end sporty cars. I know my way around a motor. Guy pops the hood and says we like to leave everything exactly the way it was when we buy it from someone. Has cheap falling apart intake. Oil spilling from both valve covers. Get inside, there's sticky black stuff around the shifter. Car smells. I get not modifying it back to normal, but damn, they couldn't even be asked to clean the damn car or spray some Febreze. Salesman, are your parents home? Me, I'm sorry. Salesman, your parents. The homeowners. Are they home? Me, I'm the homeowner. Salesman, you. You're so young. Me, get off my porch. Was trying to buy a Honda and apply the Honda graduate program. Was signing papers for the keys when I noticed the missing amount. Sales manager told me I was getting such a good deal they couldn't add that on top. So I stopped signing and told him I'm no longer buying and won't be negotiating. Look on his face was excellent as I got up to leave. Got an even better deal no more than a week later, haha. Had a car salesman tell me debt is a good thing, it'll teach you how to manage your money, when I objected to $3,000 worth of upgrades. I asked him if this was what he told all of his 22-year-old female clients, or if I was just special. He declined to answer. I did this once at Sunglass Hut. I was a new employee and was learning about Oakleys. I was shown a thermoplastic pair of shades that are hyper-durable and can be bent, stepped on, and completely jacked up, but return to their original shape after. It was sweet. Well, the next day, I'm showing a pair of Oakleys to customer and want to show the feature. Turns out, I forgot which pair was thermoplastic. Grabbed a wire-rimmed pair and stepped on it, and the arm came off. The customer was skeptical, but I explained that I was new to the store and that I just grabbed the wrong pair. They bought from me after my honesty, a new pair of the one I had stepped on. at a Honda dealership when I had to ask for the keys to my car back. For the third time, I only started cursing when I asked the fourth time. Yes, the deal he offered me was great. Even looking back, I was probably foolish for walking away from it, but I told him the moment I met him, and reiterated several times, that I wouldn't be making a purchase that day. I foolishly handed over my keys so that they could do an appraisal on my current car, which I knew they would only give me $500 for. I knew going in there that no matter what I did, I was going to go home and think about it overnight. I bought a Toyota down the street 2 days later. We get to the dealership and the car had 6k more miles on it than advertised, and they were trying to sell it for $2k more. When asked about their online ad on KBB, which showed a different price and mileage, they started arguing and getting nasty with my husband and I. That same day we looked at a handful of other cars, and we were very motivated buyers. We had $5k in hand to walk out with a car that day. Almost every single salesman tried to sell us on a more expensive vehicle or something that we weren't looking for. Wound up buying a car off of Craigslist instead. I went to a gun store to buy a gun to kill myself. Since it was a purchase for a single use, I didn't want to spend a lot of money. The salesman was this giant macho gym bro who was pushy and condescending and emasculated me for wanting to buy a cheap gun. He was so aggressive and intimidating that he ended up embarrassing me out of buying a gun at all. I just got super nervous and left the store and didn't commit suicide. Edit. About half the replies to this comment are just people asking me why I wanted a cheap gun. Firstly, I'm poor and couldn't have afforded the guns dude was trying to sell me anyway, and also I thought that anything of value I owned would be better off going to my family rather than being pawned to buy a really fancy gun just to impress some douchey salesman at the gun store. I wish I could say I'm surprised by how ignorant and insensitive people on Reddit are.